Hi, good morning. Today I will discuss a very important topics on clause that is very important for bank, BCS, admission, jobs and etc. Clause means a group of verbs that describes a meaning, consists of a finite verb and a subject. Clause. Here I cannot cook well, but I make quite good omelets. Here two clauses are in here. First one, I cannot cook well, and second one, I make a quite good omelets. I make a quite good omelets. If we look, this is an subject and this is another. Here is a verb and here is a verb. So clause means a group of verbs that have a subject and a verb and describes a meaning. That's called clause. Obviously we will we will look that finite verb. Finite verbs here make, cook. It's called finite verb. What is finite verb? Finite verbs means that's verb which depends on subject, person and tenses. Like I eat rice, here eat, he eats rice, here eats, they ate rice yesterday. Here eat is a verb that depends on person and tenses. It's called finite verb. Finite verb, nothing but. Now we will discuss the clause in how many types. Clause are three types: principal, subordinate, and coordinate. Principal clause means that kinds of clause that no need another help and no need the help of another clause. That's called principal clause. Subordinate clause means two or three clause that describes a meanings and with the help of another clause. That means the clause that depends on another clause. It's called subordinate clause. Coordinate clause means that clause that consists of two or more dependent clause or principal clause. That means coordinate clause means two Coordinate clause means two or more principal clause. Subordinate clause means a main clause or a principal clause. And a subordinate clause. Now we will discuss principal clause. Here who is a subject, it is a verb, we eat to live. We eat to live. No needs the help of another clause to describe the meaning, to describe the full meaning. When a clause describes the full meaning with a single on, it's called principal clause. And subordinate clause, now we will discuss subordinate clause. Look, though he is poor, he is honest. Here, though he is poor, is not describes a full meaning. But when we say, though he is poor, he is honest, it describes a full meaning. So it's called subordinate clause. Subordinate clause means a principal clause and a subordinate clause. Subordinate clause always consists of a principal clause and another clause. Subordinate clause is generally consist with though, although, if, which, hot, while, till, until, less, unless it is. We will always looking on the sentences that consist with though, although, if, which, hot, while, till, until, use, a less, use, unless, etc. Always these words are used in subordinate clause. Subordinate clause. Now we will discuss coordinate clause. Look, I throw the stone but miss the aim. Here, I throw the stone, that's a full meaning describing sentence, and miss the aim is another sentence that's also describe the full meaning. So, if we look two sentences are describe the full meaning, and that's are adding with but, and, or, and etc. That's called coordinate clause. Coordinate clause is consist with coordinate clause is always consist with and, or, but, yet, otherwise, not only, but also, etc. Now we have discussed principal clause, subordinate clause, coordinate clause. Now we look subordinate clause how many types, coordinate clause is how many types. Subordinate clause is three types: noun subordinate clause, adjective subordinate clause, and adverbial subordinate clause. Noun subordinate clause means that clause which you can replace with an it. It's called noun subordinate clause. For example, look, I don't know what he owns. I don't know what he owns. If we replace this part with an it and it gives a full meaning, that's called noun clause. I don't know it. When a group of words you can replace with an it and it gives a full meaning, it's called noun. It's called noun subordinate clause. Noun subordinate clause is always replaced with an it. Look, the news that he gives me is false. Here, this part is nothing but news. The news that he gives me is false. This part is always describing the news. The news is false. If we cancel it, it's also describe the full meaning. When you can delete or cancel some part of a sentence and it also describes the full meaning, it's called adjective clause. Look again, the news the news that he gives me is false. If we cancel this part, this sentence is the news is false. It also describes a meaning. When a sentence is gives the full meaning, it's called adjective clause. Adjective clause. We read that we may learn. We may learn by read. When this part is adding with by the verb, it also describes a full meaning. When some part of a sentence replace with adding with by with the verb of the sentence and describes a full meaning, it's called adverbial subordinate clause. Again we read the sentence, we may learn. If we say we read, we learn by read, sorry, we read, or we learn. Look, we learn by read. This read is the verb of the sentence, and when we cancel a part and adding by with the verb and discuss the full meanings, it's called adverbial subordinate clause. Now we will discuss adverbial clause. Adverbial clause means look, we read that we may learn. This part, if we sense like this, it also describes a full meaning. We read by learn. When some part of a group verb and it describes the full meaning, it's called adverbial clause. We read that we may learn. Herefrom we take only verb and adding with by. When the verb of the group verbs from the group verbs and adding with by and it describes a full meaning, it's called adverbial clause. We read that we may learn, and we read by learn. Here learn is a verb and read is a verb. Read verb by adding by learn and describes a full meaning, it's called adverbial clause. We read by learn. Herefrom use this verb only, and it describes a full meaning, it's called adverbial clause. Adverbial clause is nothing but more.